Welcome to the Searching for Meaning podcast. My name is Gonçalo, and I'm joined by my brother Tiago. Welcome.
Greetings.
And as you can see today, we only have one microphone. It's kind of, low budget, but we forgot the other one. We're going to do like that. And what I want to talk about today, because both of us just finished and I'm sure some of you guys have seen the Avatar, The Last Airbender. It's been, really trending nowadays. And both of us, coincidentally enough, finished at the same time. And so what I want to do today essentially is just go over some of the lessons of the show, the main ones, especially because even though it's a kid's show, supposedly it's on Nickelodeon, I feel like if it wasn't on Nickelodeon, you would never, feel like that was a cartoon for kids. You would always feel like it's a more adult show. And with that in mind, it's a show that deals a lot with, struggle, internal conflict, pain, even problems with success and failure and all that. And I just want to touch on some of those lessons. But before we get in, I must start with like a recommendation because it's such a nice show. And for both of us, it was a show that we started when we were kids. Because I was seeing like the show first released on 2006, the first season. So that's like 14 years ago. It's like, yeah. And yeah, it's crazy to start, from when we were kids. We're more into like the action scenes, the fighting, all that. And now watching it as an adult, you kind of realize why it's such a good show, like all the meaning behind those fights as well.
Yeah, I think with these cartoon shows, these are the ones that really stick with us, and the most popular ones. You see, like SpongeBob and Avatar, Samurai Jack. All of these iconic cartoons, they stuck around for a reason. I think they managed to transition from children to adults, and both of them can enjoy it. And this is one of those things. I think it's amazing because I experienced it for the first time. Not the first time. I also did this with Samurai Jack, where I watched it as a kid, and now I finished it as an adult. This one is even more special to me than Samurai Jack because we really followed the Avatar religiously when we were children. We watched almost all of the episodes. I think we just missed the final the final episode, the 4-part episode, and it's incredible watching it again and now taking all of the lessons from it, all the life lessons that you pick up along the way. It's amazing.
Yeah, truly. And with that being said, I want to start. I wrote here, just 3 things. It's not like these are big notes, but just 3 main topics of, in my opinion, like 3 characters that had the biggest character development of them all. Especially 2 where you see, the villains become, in essence, heroes. Where it was Prince Zuko, he was after the Avatar, which is the main character. And for him to have his honor restored, he would have to catch him or, he'd forever be banished and he could not become you could call it the king. And it's a really interesting journey. And I'll start with Zuko with that. Because it is a journey of, like, he was a person who, and you can see in, like, flashbacks where he was a decent person before all of this. Maybe he had like high ambitions and all that, but even when with the scenes with his mom and all that, he was like a more gentle kind of type of person that at least was learning. And then this whole situation happened where he got banished. His father fought him, and he kind of saw like his honor go away. And then it's so interesting to see how you start with him as just wanting this Avatar thing, just wanting to catch him. Then he's always struggling with that, always very angry, always very raging. And then when he doesn't get it, and then he's even further banished where that wouldn't even solve it to a certain point, he, in a way, finds himself lost. And even when, I'm kind of scattered here, but there's this great scene where he does the right thing, where he kind of lets the Avatar go, where then he has like this, how they show it in the show is that he's like in a fever dream type of way where he's struggling with, because he saw himself a certain way. And then he does something that it is still him, but it's just been buried for a long time, like the good action. And so he sees himself conflicted, kind of like battling with both sides. And what I like is like, even though he kind of becomes good in that part, then he's tempted by the dark side again, and then he falls again. And only really in the end, you see the full transformation. And number one, super well done because they build up this super nice, but it's also more like how it happens in real life. It's not like, I feel like a lot of times in these movies is And in these shows, it's they have this transformation and then they're good forever. But even in real life, it's like, okay, you can change, but you can still fall back into previous bad habits, and you can still fall into, you could call it your previous self. And it's not always this effort transformation as they show in the movies, where just one moment you're bad, then something happens, you're good, and it always happens like that. I feel like it's truly the yin yang, where, and there's even a lot of that in the show where you always have both of those things within you, but like him, like Zuko, you always choose also which path you're gonna choose within that.
I think the show really makes it clear that it is a choice. That's I think the main character arc from Zuko is basically that, is saying you have the choice. No matter what you think your destiny is or what you were meant to do at birth, there's always a chance for you to change it. And as we see him do along the series, he thinks he wants one thing, the Avatar, then he changes and he kind of relinquishes that idea and even gets physically sick because he loses losing his purpose makes him physically sick. Then he has to find something else. He even has to kind of figure out a new fuel when he eventually tries to be good again and teach the Avatar firebending. He has to find a new source of fuel for his life, because his purpose used to be moved by anger and fear, and now he needs to find a new source of purpose. And I can kind of relate to this. I think both of us, when we started this kind of self-help thing and trying to change our lives, it's very easy to be motivated by anger and by shame and things you don't want to have in yourself, and so you use that as fuel. And I think many people do this, especially like in my reality, going into the gym and kind of learning from that space. A lot of people are motivated by not by wanting to be healthier, wanting to like trying to reward their body for like just because of what it likes, but because they're trying to punish it. They come from a mental space of like, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I deserve this pain in the gym. And this is like something, it can get you results, I'm not gonna lie, it can get you really fast results even, but it's like you said, you can't keep on doing that forever. Eventually your fuel, it disappears. You can't fuel yourself on anger and fear eventually. And like Zuko, your fire will run out and you will have to learn firebending all over again. So you'll have to go to the process all over again, and it will be more difficult. So try to find it earlier.
Yeah, and there's even this great scene I was forgetting when they're in the beach as well. And like where Zuko, in essence, because then he came back and he got everything. He achieved everything he always wanted, but then he wasn't happy as well. Like in that scene when he comes back and then he in the beach scene, like he's so angry and they're asking like, who are you angry at? Is it me? Is it her? And he's like I'm angry at myself, because I feel like it's twofold here. First of all, he knew he did the wrong thing. So, by doing the wrong thing, you're always going to be, even if that's going to give you results, if you deep down know that's not, again, according to your moral code, you're always going to feel bad regardless of how good the result is. And then the second is, if you're fueled by anger, you're always going to need more of that. Like in the gym, if a lot of these pursuits, people are motivated by running away from something and not really wanting to face that. A lot of times even going to the gym and losing weight, for a lot of people, can be just not even looking at yourself that way and just kind of running away from that figure that you were or that you are, and just trying to get to a more slimmer, more healthy, even healthy, more fit body, just the looks of it, just so you don't have to deal with the shame and all that maybe not being attractive or being fat meant. And it's not the thing of like, it's the opposite of I love my body, I love myself, so I want to do this. And it's more of the I hate myself, so I'm just going to run away from this problem. Whether that is by, not doing anything and running away from it, or even going to the gym, that can be a way of running away from it as well. Like not really facing that issue. And the show really shows that well, when Zuko has to confront that and he decides to leave, because even though he got everything he wanted, it wasn't the right way. He was going to become Fire Lord eventually, when his father passed down to him if he kept going, but it wasn't the right way. And then it's so nice to see that at the end of the movie, the TV show, he does become the Fire Lord, but in the right way possible, and in the way that was according to his moral code, and that then made him kind of find peace with himself. And throughout this, and I want to shift here to what I would say probably my favorite character of the whole TV show, which is the person that helped Zuko kind of really helped him have all these realizations and give him a different perspective. You could say it was his father to him, which was his uncle. It's called Uncle Iroh. So you're, in the show, and this, in my opinion, is probably one of the wisest characters in any TV show because it's done in a way that is not, it's not like he's this guru on top of the mountain just spitting advice. He's a very down to earth person, very nice, but in the right moments gives these bits of advice that are so needed. And and I want to touch here on an episode where it's called The Tales of Ba Sing Se, where just essentially, just a few stories of each character. And one of is just like he going around town helping everyone, making the kids happy, even helping some robbers that was stealing from him find the right path, you could say. But then at the end, you see that him like kind of going up a mountain and setting a picnic, a tribute to his son that died in the war, and singing a song and crying, and saying like, I think something along the lines that, why couldn't I help you? And you see that a lot of what he's doing is because he kind of regrets, because I do believe his son died in the war that he was waging, and so he feels responsible for that, and it really gave him a different perspective. And so now it's kind of one of those things that he's trying to fix himself by fixing the world, by doing good to the world. He's trying to do good for himself, essentially.
Yeah, that's also my favorite character. I think it's really very difficult not to like that character, and I also like it because this is even going back to Zuko just for a bit. The way they show it is so good for kids because it's really teaching that there are some weird feelings that are acceptable. For example, the scene in the beach where it's like it's a really huge build up until he finally says, "I'm angry with myself," because and that's I think the way they do it, because for kids that's strange for you to be mad at yourself. Usually, first you learn, I'm mad at him because he stole my ball. I'm mad at my mom because she made me have a shower. And those are like normal feelings for kids. So like, even when they're all asking, what are you mad at? Who are you mad at? And it's just like, he's so confused and eventually admits like, out of desperation, I'm mad at myself. And that's like, that's the way a kid learns, because it's not an obvious thing. For us adults, it's an obvious thing. We kind of know that we can be mad at ourselves. But for a kid, it's like a huge realization. It's like, oh, I can do this, and it's maybe not right. And so that's just one thing I wanted to touch on. But then going back to Uncle Iroh, I think it's such an awesome character. And like you said, it really brings you down to earth because you see that he's not like a perfect human being. He begins the series being fat and he's always lazy, trying to play chess, and it's that's what makes it so relatable. But in the midst of all of this, he's going on a quest with his nephew Zuko, which he knows is wrong. He knows that capturing the Avatar is wrong. So he's there. There's a little moral gray area for Uncle Iroh, but it's also good how they in Avatar they do this with a lot of characters, especially with Zuko and Uncle Iroh. They claim in the beginning that their destiny is something, and then they reveal it to be something else, but very similar. So for Zuko, his destiny was not capturing the Avatar, but was to help the Avatar bring balance to the world. So the paths were interconnected. With Iroh, he even in the last episode he says that he had a vision where he conquered Ba Sing Se, which was a city, and in the end he ends up conquering it, but for the other nation, for the good guys. And so it's amazing how they do that, and it's also like I think a good reflection on your own life, that sometimes you can have these goals and that you end up figuring out that they were wrong, but they either led you to finding out the good goals that you now have in life, the good path that you are now on, or that can eventually lead you to that. So it's like, I think I remember being in this position where I'm like, I feel like there's no purpose. What do I have to do? Where is my purpose? What is my purpose? And this is a question that can haunt us if we let it. But I remember reading Man's Search for Meaning, and he phrased the question in a different way. Like, it's not what is my purpose, but what is life asking of me? Yeah. And that's just, I think it's a good comparison, because it's just like they shifted their purpose just by perspective. Their purpose was something, but seen from a different perspective. You too can see that in real life. You can alter the perspective on what you think is your purpose, or if you don't know what is your purpose, on the question that you are making, and eventually find the right thing.
Yeah, and all of those, it's very interesting to see, like you were saying, because in a way they knew what the destiny was, just in a different way than they expected. because like Zuko, his destiny was the Avatar, but not to capture him, but to help him. And like Uncle Haro, it was Ba Sing Se, but not to capture it for the Fire Nation, but to reconquer it back from the Fire Nation. And yeah, like you were saying, in a way, I feel like in real life doesn't always play out like that, because in their cases, what life was asking from them was very similar to what they initially. It was very connected to what they wanted initially. And sometimes, in real life, there's things that may or not, at least I feel like, are not always connected, or they don't feel always connected at first glance. But it's such a much better option to just ask what you need from it. Because, and I see this so much on even, questions to the page or videos on YouTube, where it's like, not so much like what's the meaning of life, but what do I decide what to do? How do I pick a path? Because I feel like everyone wants to in a certain way, to be very good at something and to pursue something. And, they see people are very good at something, that are like, athletes or musicians or artists. And I feel like everyone wants to be that good at something, but it's very hard to find the path you want to suffer through to maybe get to that, or to get to some level of expertise at, because there are so many options. And then so often it's just much easier to kind of sideline here, to just always have, having all your options in front of you and all the potential in front of you, but never committing to one. Or, or even if you try one, you're always like, but maybe I could do something else. And then never actually fulfilling any potential in any of them, and just like always going through life like that. And I feel like this show I feel like it's so inspiring for all the characters, because they're people in the show that commit to things. Like, even though Zuko was for the wrong in the beginning, he was committed to that thing. You could see Uncle Ara when he was trying to Ba Sing Se in the beginning. It was that. At the end, he was also committed. Life or Death, the Avatar. They were all very committed to what they were doing. Life or Death. And, in their show, it's like it's kind of given to them that meaning. Like, life very clearly gives them that meaning. But for us, like, there's no war in our civilized countries right now. There's some problems, that a lot of times give meaning to people. In America, stuff with the Black Lives Matter, with sometimes even a lot of, could be politics problems, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to find that meaning for yourself. And the best way is, like, really, like you said, asking what life needs, like what it really needs from you. Because a lot of times I do believe we know, and you really know, but a lot of times it's easier to just push it down and be like, but no, maybe I think I should study for 3 more years and kind of think about this a bit later. Or, kind of second sideline here. I feel like a big reason why people study so long, even after their bachelor's or the first 3 years of university, and go into like more advanced, a lot of times, not always, but I feel like a lot of times it's because it's just a bit of a delay until we actually have to go into real life and be an adult and do stuff. Because until then, like, the meaning is kind of given to you. It's like, you have to finish this. But when you finish that, you don't need to do anything, but you could do everything as well. You could choose all these paths. And I feel like that a lot of times is scary. And it really leads people to, run away from that. Which I kind of want to transition into the last character I want to talk about for now, which is the main character, Aang. And I didn't even had written this down. So Aang is the Avatar. He's the person that's supposed to bring balance to the world. Almost like if you like Star Wars, like how Anakin was supposed to bring balance to the Force. And initially, he found out when he was like what, 8 years old, something like that? Or no, when he was 12. But then there was a lot of pressure put on him. And so essentially he ran away, and he kind of got frozen under the sea. And that's what led to, him being disappeared for 100 years and the war lasting 100 years, because he wasn't there to restore balance. And in a way, as you can see, Aang in that initially, he was doing that. He was running away from his purpose, which led to a lot of problems outside himself. And it's so nice to see as well, because when you're presented to him as a character, he is a child. He's just making jokes. He's like a 13-year-old. Like, he's just fucking around all the time. But the more it progresses and the more it becomes clear that how serious it is, the consequences, the more he grows as well. Never losing that side of, playful and all that. But he really grows into a very responsible person. He kind of accepts that faith that has been given to him, like the meaning, the purpose life was asking of him, and he commits fully to that. not without his, any, without certain obstacles, all that he had to overcome. But eventually at the end, and I'll let you touch on some of the other points. I want to touch on the last one, which is after all this training, after all this struggle, he then faces the Fire Lord, and really at the end he's winning, and he could kill him. He could essentially just end his life and end the war, but he had been struggling with this scenario, which is he didn't want to kill him because that didn't really go along with his moral code, which is a life is still a life, no matter how bad. In his mind, it didn't give him the right to take that life just because he felt that he was bad. He just felt he couldn't just go around killing people he felt they were bad. And so what happens is such a nice ending, in my opinion, which is he kind of confronts him by kind of touching in his forehead. And in a way, what happens, there's like the two spirits of them like matching each other. And where he had learned that if he was to do that and win that way, his spirit would have to be uncorruptible. So he would have to be very pure in his intentions, what he's doing. And it's such a dramatic moment as well, where he starts to lose, and like at the last moment, he eventually does win. And he won by sticking to his moral code, by doing the right thing, because otherwise he would just be like Zuko, where he would have achieved what he wanted, but not living according to his moral code, and he'd probably be very conflicted until he died. And so I feel like it's a good contrast of those two very different, that, both ended up really following what they believed was right, despite what everyone else around them was saying, essentially.
And I also want to say that this is true for almost all of the characters. Their purpose is always difficult. For Sokka and Katara, the companions of the Avatar, they have to leave their home and basically go, leave everything ever known to travel with the Avatar to go eventually face a Fire Lord. So this, while they were still kids, then on season 2 they find Toph, this blind girl. She also has to leave their house and their parents. So it's always Avatar, like you said. The fight is like basically it's a physical representation of how hard it is. For him to not kill him, he has to, they called it soul bending or bending person, but like it's something like that, and he has to take away the powers from him, but like you said, only if he's pure enough. So this isn't something easy, It's not like in the show they almost show him being corrupted, but then he resists. And for Zuko, it's turning away from the Fire Nation and going to save the Avatar, even confronting his father and having this kind of mini fight with him. So for each of these characters, their purpose is always hard. For Uncle Iroh, he goes in jail and he has to work out in there and eventually break out. It's not like it's something that's easy for you to follow your purpose and accomplish it. It's always something difficult, and that's something good they do in the show. That it's like, I think it's good for kids to know that it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy to do, even like you were saying in the example of people going to college, and you may be afraid of going to the real world. And that's supposed to be like that, You are going to be afraid. I'm almost going into the real world, and I'm also afraid when I think about it. But, it's part of the journey. You can't get really it's like kind of the cliche, but, it's no pain, no gain, It will always be difficult, but also it won't be as difficult as you probably think it will, If you're just trying, like when you're trying to find a job or something like that, the first day is going to be terrifying. But once you actually get there, you notice that it's not that terrifying as your mind makes it out to be. And so you can take lessons from both sides, It's going to be difficult. It's not going to be as difficult as Aang or leaving your parents' house and going all the way around. It's not like going to be in the Avatar. It's going to be slightly uncomfortable. But that's, I think, what's also what holds people back. Is like the slight uncomfort in their lives. It's like the book, the War of Art, when he says that that little force, I don't know what he calls it right now, but there's this resistance, he calls it the resistance, which is basically that there's always something inside of you telling you, nah, just leave it for tomorrow, don't do it. Like, he even says this amazing quotes, what kills creativity is not saying that you won't ever do it, is that you will do it tomorrow. And that's basically what people do with their lives, You don't say you're not ever going to get that dream house, you say you're going to do it sometime. You don't say you are not going to learn that sport, you say you're going to do it sometime. It's always the sometime, the vagueness that kind of kills your dreams. So it's also for you to recognize that there's a limited time on this earth, and that vagueness, you can't keep being vague forever. Eventually you have to do something, or you eventually realize this, because if you live long enough, you know that you've been telling yourself a lie for long enough, you eventually realize it.
Totally. And I feel like we can end on that. I just want to just a few like additions here. Like a big one is that there's to also realize, the show perfectly shows that sacrifice required, because there are some things you need to kind of sacrifice. You can't be, have the comfort forever and then achieve the things you want. You need to sacrifice some of that comfort. Sometimes, maybe a lot of times, like leaving your parents' homes, maybe not so dramatic as I never even thought about that until now. How they show, a normal young adult's progression in the show, but just in a more dramatic fashion of leaving the house, going for a purpose outside of hopefully what people were just telling you all your life, something you actually find meaning and purpose on, dealing with all the struggles. But then on the good side, as the show shows in real life, there's people there that are always going to be there for you, helping you as well. There's people on the same path that also want the same as you and, are going to be your friends, like you see on Avatar, despite all that happened. And he could only do that because of the people around him as well. It wasn't something he just did alone and he was just like, I'm the Avatar, I'm going to do all of this. And it shows a lot of I feel like the virtues one needs to have, that it's not only being strong and being like a man, like manly, it's also, being able to rely on others to be vulnerable when you need to be, all of that. And I want to end by just recommending to everyone who's watching, go watch this, go watch the Avatar. I know it's on Netflix right now, so I don't even know if you have a free trial or something. You can go watch that on Netflix. I don't know if it's on anywhere else right now. But yeah, you can go do that. Other than that, we'll see you guys next week. And yeah, see ya. Bye bye.